Right. Get ready to dive into a story that's, well, it's both fascinating and honestly pretty heartbreaking. We're talking Indian indentured labor in Suriname.
A system that's often overlooked, definitely, but it had a huge impact on, well, the world, really.
And you know how much I love a good primary source, right? Well, you've outdone yourself this time. You found excerpts from Kalapani by Mohan K. Gautam.
It's a fascinating read.
Tell me about it. It actually uses the diary of an indentured laborer named Munshi Raman Khan. Talk about a time machine.
It's incredible to get that personal perspective, Munshi's diary, it gives us a window into what life was really like. I mean, beyond the dates and statistics and all that, we're talking about cultural adaptation, resilience, even the birth of a whole new Indo-Surinamese identity.
Right. It's like, I don't know, holding history in your hands. So where do we even begin with a story this big?
Well, for Munshi, it all starts with a promise, a classic case, really, of deceptive recruitment. Imagine being told you're headed for a government job, a chance to be a leader, maybe even make a better life for your family.
Sounds a little too good to be true.
That's because it was. These recruiters, the Arcadis, they preyed on people's hopes. Especially back then, economic conditions in India were really rough.
And to be clear, we're talking about the late 19th century post-slavery in the Caribbean. So plantation owners needed workers, and they weren't, shall we say, too picky about how they got them.
Let's just say grueling journey across the ocean wasn't exactly a selling point.
So they just, glossed over that whole part?
They weren't exactly handing out brochures about the cramped ships and high mortality rates. In fact, there's this quote from a ship surgeon. It's in Kalapani. It's chilling, really. He said, "Many of the coolies, after leaving India, are very homesick. They have entered another world and everything is new and strange to them. In their ignorance, they think they are going to some unknown region."
Wow. Just, wow. Talk about an understatement. Makes you wonder how anyone coped with that kind of, I don't know, fear and uncertainty.
That's where Munshi's diary is just remarkable. Even in the snippets we have in Kalapani, you can see him clinging to his traditions, his faith. It's like those rituals, they were a lifeline, a way to stay connected to who he was in this completely alien world.
It really speaks to the resilience of these people, doesn't it? But let's be real, the hardships didn't magically disappear once they arrived in Suriname. What was life actually like on these plantations?
In a word, brutal. Imagine working, really working, grueling hours under a hot sun for maybe 25 cents a day.
And that's if you were a man.
If you're a man, yeah. Women were lucky to see 18 cents.
Hold on. They were paid even less than the men.
It was a system built on exploitation, at every level.
Yeah.
And sadly, gender inequality.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was woven into the fabric of it all. And yet, Gautam argues that even in these conditions, these laborers, they found ways to resist, to maintain their dignity, to hold on to their culture.
It's incredible. How did they manage that?
It wasn't easy. Plantation owners, they actively tried to suppress Indian culture. But like water finding a crack, it always finds a way. We see temples popping up, religious festivals, storytelling becomes this powerful tool to pass down traditions, to keep that connection to their homeland alive.
Okay, that's incredible. But I have to ask, how do they even communicate? You've got people coming from all different parts of India, each with their own language, right?
That's where we get to the fascinating story of Suriname. Imagine a linguistic melting pot. You've got all these different Indian dialects simmering together, and what comes out? This brand new language, unique to Suriname.
So it's like a blend of languages reflecting this blend of cultures. That's so cool.
Exactly. Gautam calls it colonization, basically. The mixing of dialects out of necessity. They needed to talk to each other, to the overseers, to everyone. Suriname became their common ground, a testament to how language adapts and evolves alongside culture.
It makes you think about the power of language, doesn't it? To shape identity. Suriname wasn't just a way to speak, it was a way to belong. But they didn't forget Hindi altogether, did they?
Not at all. Hindi held a special place, especially when it came to religion, cultural practices.
Language of their faith, their connection to the motherland.
Exactly. So you have this fascinating dynamic, Suriname for everyday life, Hindi for the soul. It shows how these laborers, they navigated two worlds, creating something new while holding on to what mattered most.
And that's what's so captivating about this. It's not just about hardship. It's about survival, adaptation, the birth of something totally new. But what happened after indenture? Did things improve for the Indo-Surinamese community?
Well, that's where the fight for rights and recognition really begins. We start to see individuals like Janie Begum Taturi emerge as these powerful figures of resistance.
Wait, Begum? That's a pretty badass nickname. Tell me more.
Oh, she earned it. Janie, she fiercely defended her fellow laborers, especially the women. She stood up to overseers, demanded fair treatment, fought for better conditions.
She sounds incredible.
She was. Sadly, her story is also marked by tragedy. She was killed during an uprising in 1884. It's a stark reminder of the dangers faced by those who dared to challenge the system.
It's a heartbreaking reminder that the fight for equality often comes at a great cost.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that progress, it's not always a straight line, you know? It's often marked by struggle and sacrifice. But even in death, Janie B. Gumtemperry, she became a symbol of that resistance, a beacon of hope for the Indo-Surinamese community.
It's like her spirit fueled the fight for generations to come.
Speaking of that fight, what did this movement for rights and recognition, what did that look like as time went on?
Well, it really gained momentum. As the Indo-Surinamese community became more politically aware, we see the rise of ethnic-based political parties, like the VHP, advocating for their rights and interests.
So they went from fighting for basic survival to demanding a seat at the table. That's a huge shift. It really is. It speaks to their growing power and determination to shape their own destiny. But it wasn't without its complexities, you know? The article mentions Dr. Pandey. He talks about this, well, it's often a complicated relationship, really, between the Indo-Surinamese community and their ancestral homeland.
It's like that feeling of being caught between two worlds, the place you came from and the place you built a life in. Both are home, but in different ways.
Exactly. It's a common thread in a lot of diaspora communities, this pull between two identities, reconciling where they come from with where they find themselves.
Okay, so we've talked about their struggles, their resilience, but what about their culture? How did they keep those traditions alive in a place so different from India?
That's where Minchi's diary. It takes us from these individual experiences to cultural adaptations. And one of the most powerful examples, the role of religion. Despite attempts to suppress it, these laborers found ways to maintain their faith, even if it meant practicing in secret.
So they held on to their beliefs even when it was dangerous.
Absolutely. Religion, it provided comfort, the sense of continuity in a world that had been turned upside down. And eventually it moved from the shadows into the light. We see temples being built becoming not just places of worship, but community centers where people could connect, share stories, celebrate their heritage.
It's like they recreated a little piece of home.
Yeah.
Right there in Suriname.
Exactly. And those temples, they weren't just carbon copies of what they left behind in India. We see this fascinating blend of architectural styles, local materials, even a merging of religious traditions. Imagine temples where both Hindus and Muslims felt welcome.
Wow. So it wasn't just about preserving the past. It was about creating something new, something uniquely Indo-Surinamese.
You've hit the nail on the head. It reminds us that culture, it's alive. It's always evolving and adapting to its surroundings. And this blending, this fusion of influences, it created something truly remarkable.
It makes you wonder what other fascinating adaptations emerged from this cultural collision. What about this whole concept of Jahaji brotherhood?
Yeah.
That sounds intriguing.
It's an incredibly powerful concept. Jahaji refers to the shared experience of the journey. The ship or jahaj that brought them from India to Suriname. It created this bond among these laborers that transcended regional and even religious differences.
So even if they came from different parts of India, spoke different dialects, had different beliefs, the journey itself united them.
Precisely. It's like they became family bound together by hardship and displacement. And this Jahaji brotherhood, it was more than just symbolic. It played a crucial role in their survival.
How so?
Well, they supported each other, shared resources, helped each other navigate this new world. It was about looking out for one another, understanding that their fates were intertwined.
It's a testament to the power of community, especially in the face of adversity. But did this sense of unity, this Jahaji brotherhood, did it last? I mean, beyond those early years.
That's the amazing part. It did more than last. It evolved. It became a cornerstone of their identity as Indo-Surinamese, shaping their cultural memory and their place in this new society.
So it became a part of their DNA, a shared history that transcended those initial hardships.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most unlikely circumstances can forge the strongest bonds. But as the Indo-Surinamese community grew, so did their desire for a greater say in their own destiny. And this is where we see the rise of figures like Dr. Janan Adhin.
Tell me more about him. What made him such a pivotal figure?
Well, Dr. Adhin, he was a scholar and an activist who refused to let the Indo-Surinamese story be marginalized. He challenged the dominant Eurocentric narrative, head on, demanding recognition for their cultural contributions, their language, their history.
He was like a champion for their voices, making sure they weren't forgotten or ignored.
Precisely. And his work was crucial. because it paved the way for a more inclusive understanding of Surinamese history and identity. You see, he argued that their story wasn't just an addendum, it was an integral part of the nation's narrative.
It's like he was rewriting the history books, making sure those contributions were given the recognition they deserved.
And that fight for recognition for a place at the table, it wasn't limited to Suriname, it was happening across the globe, wherever Indian indentured laborers had landed and built new lives.
It makes you realize this wasn't just a local story. It was a global phenomenon with lasting consequences. And speaking of global, let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture. What kind of lasting legacy did this system of Indian indentured labor leave on the world?
Well, Kalapani touches on the far-reaching impact of this system. It's a story that's woven into the fabric of societies, from the Caribbean to Africa, from Asia to the Americas.
So we're talking about this massive movement of people, cultures, ideas across continents. It's hard to even fathom the ripple effects of something that huge.
And those ripple effects, they're still felt today. In the demographics, the economies, the cultural landscapes of so many nations, it's a legacy that's both complex and profound, a blend of hardship, resilience, cultural fusion, and the enduring power of heritage. And it's a legacy that's often intertwined with the legacies of colonialism and slavery, creating these intricate layers of history and identity.
It's like trying to untangle this giant knot of history, each strand representing a different story, a different perspective.
But it's a knot worth untangling. Because by understanding the journeys of these laborers, we gain a deeper understanding of our interconnected world and the forces that shaped it. And that's what the deep dive is all about, isn't it? Diving deep into these untold stories and uncovering the hidden connections that bind us all.
Absolutely. And speaking of untold stories, we've got another source to explore that takes us to a different corner of the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago. You shared some excerpts from an article called Social Stratification in Trinidad, and I have to say, it adds a whole new layer of complexity to this already fascinating story.
And what's particularly intriguing about this article is its focus on the economic contributions of Indian indentured laborers in Trinidad.
Because it wasn't just about hardship and cultural adaptation. They were also building lives shaping economies.
Exactly. The article argues that their arrival in the mid-19th century, it was crucial in revitalizing the plantation economy, especially in the sugarcane industry, which was struggling after the abolition of slavery.
So it fills a void. But as we've seen, not without a human cost.
You're right. The article doesn't shy away from acknowledging the exploitation and suffering these laborers endured. It mentions the abysmally low wages, the inhumane living conditions, the systemic inequalities woven into the very fabric of the indenture system.
It's a grim reminder that economic progress often comes at the expense of those deemed disposable by the powerful.
A tragic truth indeed. But alongside the hardship, the article also highlights the agency of these laborers, their sheer resilience, and their determination to claw their way towards a better life despite the odds stacked against them.
It's that indomitable spirit that always shines through, isn't it? They were determined to make something of themselves, even within a system designed to exploit them.
And make something of themselves, they did. The article points out that while the majority were initially sent to sugarcane plantations, many eventually branched out, establishing themselves in other sectors like cocoa and coconut production.
They weren't content with just being cogs in the machine. They wanted more for themselves and their families.
Exactly. And some even managed to acquire land, becoming independent farmers and landowners. Imagine that. Going from indentured laborer to landowner. Talk about a testament to their grit and entrepreneurial spirit.
It's like they flipped the script, turning a system designed to trap them into a springboard for economic independence.
And this upward mobility, it sent shockwaves through the social fabric of Trinidad. It led to the rise of a vibrant Indo-Trinidadian community, complete with their own businesses, religious institutions, and, of course, those rich cultural traditions.
They weren't just surviving, they were thriving, leaving their mark on every aspect of Trinidadian society.
And the article even gets into specifics. It mentions individuals like Colasar, who owned a coconut estate, Luxing, a cocoa estate owner, and a whole host of others who became successful landowners and entrepreneurs.
It's like they were rewriting the narrative of what was possible, showing future generations that they too could achieve their dreams.
Absolutely. They became beacons of hope, living proof that upward mobility was achievable, that they could carve their own destinies out of the most challenging circumstances. And this rewriting of the narrative, it wasn't confined to the economic sphere. It bled into the very cultural heart of Trinidad, leading to the emergence of a distinct Indo-Trinidadian identity.
So it's not just about economics, is it? It's about culture identity, finding your place in a world that tried to define you in a very specific way.
Precisely. It was a process of cultural adaptation, yes,
Yeah.
but also of creation. They wove together the threads of their Indian heritage with the vibrant tapestry of Trinidadian life, giving birth to something truly unique.
And it's those unique cultural expressions that often tell us the most about a community's journey. Does the article delve into any of those?
It does. It specifically mentions the Mahase festival, a Muslim religious procession that evolved into a major celebration in Trinidad. And here's the fascinating part. It wasn't just for Muslims. Hindus participated, Afro-Trinidadians joined in. It became this beautiful testament to cultural exchange and shared experience.
It's like music to my ears, a celebration of cultural fusion, breaking down those barriers and bringing people together through shared traditions.
That's the magic of cultural dynamism. It adapts, evolves, and sometimes the most unexpected fusions create the most vibrant expressions. And that's what we see with the Indo-Trinidadian community. They weren't just holding on to the past, they were shaping the present, enriching the cultural tapestry of their adopted home.
And it's a powerful reminder that culture isn't static. It's a living, breathing entity that thrives on interaction and exchange.
Exactly. And it's this dynamism, this ability to adapt and evolve that allowed the Indo-Trinidadian community to not only survive, but to thrive, weaving their own unique thread into the rich tapestry of Trinidadian society.
It's a story that's both inspiring and humbling, a testament to the enduring power of heritage, the unyielding resilience of the human spirit, and the boundless potential of cultural adaptation.
And it serves as this stark contrast to the harsh realities of the indenture system itself.
Right.
It's a testament to the power of the human spirit to rise above adversity, to build something beautiful and enduring out of the ashes of exploitation.
Their story, much like the story of the Indo-Surinamese community, reminds us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit finds a way to persevere, to adapt, and to create. It's incredible how even when faced with the system, it was literally designed to strip them of their power, and yet they found ways to reclaim it through culture, through entrepreneurship, through sheer force of will.
Absolutely. And as the Indo-Trinidadian community grew, flourished even, they naturally, they wanted a voice in the political arena, right? Yeah. Social stratification in Trinidad talks about how this led to this fascinating period of, political awakening.
Which makes sense. As they gained economic footing, established themselves as a vital part of the workforce, of course they wanted a say in how their nation was run.
Precisely. And this desire for representation, it led to the formation of political organizations that specifically, directly, championed the interests of the Indo-Trinidadian community.
The article mentions the Trinidad Working Men's Association, the TWA. What role did they play in all this?
Oh, the TWA is fascinating. They didn't just advocate for Indian rights, you see. They positioned themselves as a voice for all working-class people in Trinidad, regardless of their background.
So they understood that there's power and solidarity in building bridges across racial and ethnic lines. That's a powerful strategy for creating lasting change.
Absolutely. By aligning themselves with the broader labor movement, they tapped into this, powerful force for social and political change. And this political awakening, it went hand in hand with this surge in educational aspirations within the Indo-Trinidadian community.
Because education equals opportunity. That seems to be a universal theme really throughout history.
Exactly. They recognized that knowledge, its power. And they were determined to equip future generations with the tools to break down those barriers, shatter those glass ceilings.
But it wasn't always easy, was it? I seem to recall, and I think it was in this article, there was something about resistance to education, especially for girls.
You're right. The article does touch upon the deeply ingrained gender inequalities that sadly persisted from India. Initially, there were those who saw no value in educating girls. A sad reflection, really, of the limitations imposed upon them by societal norms.
It's heartbreaking. Sadly, not all that surprising, though, is it?
True. But here's the inspiring part. Over time, that mindset, it began to shift. Families started to realize that denying girls an education, it was like, clipping their wings, Yeah. They saw the power of knowledge, not just for their sons, but for their daughters as well.
It speaks volumes about the community's evolution, their growing awareness of the power of education, to unlock those opportunities for all their children.
And this led to this boom in the establishment of schools, many run by religious organizations, actually. And these institutions, they became more than just places of learning. They were bastions of cultural preservation, ensuring that the next generation, they didn't just excel in academics, but they stayed connected to their roots.
Like they were building a bridge between the past and the future. ensuring that their heritage, it continued to thrive in this new land.
Exactly. And the impact, undeniable, this commitment to education, it gave rise to this whole new generation of Indo-Trinidadian professionals, intellectuals, leaders. We're talking doctors, lawyers, politicians, entrepreneurs, you name it.
It's a remarkable transformation, isn't it? From a system designed to exploit to a community that rose up to shape the very fabric of their nation.
It really is something, a testament to their resilience, their ambition, their unwavering belief in the power of education to, break down those barriers and open doors. And as this new generation came of age, their voices, well, they only got stronger, more influential. We see the rise of Indo-Trinidadian newspapers like the East Indian Weekly. It became this powerful platform for their perspectives, their takes on social and political issues.
Like they were taking back control of their narrative, telling their own stories on their own terms.
Precisely. No longer content with being spoken for, they carved out their own space. In the media landscape, right? Ensuring those voices were heard, loud and clear. And this newfound voice, it became crucial, especially as Trinidad and Tobago inched closer and closer to independence in the mid-20th century.
So they weren't just passive bystanders, they were active participants in shaping the future of their nation.
Absolutely. They were at the forefront of the independence movement, demanding a society that acknowledged and valued their contributions, their sacrifices, their right to be recognized as equal citizens.
It makes you realize the story of Trinidad and Tobago, just like Suriname, it's not complete without understanding the struggles and the triumphs of the Indo-Trinidadian community.
Their history, it's inextricably intertwined with the nation's story. A testament to the power of migration, adaptation, and the enduring legacy of those who dared to dream of a better future for themselves and for generations to come.
It's been an incredible journey, hasn't it? From the personal reflections of Munshi Rahman Khan's diary to the broader social and political movements that shape nations, we've explored, really explored, the depths of a story that's so often, it's relegated to the footnotes of history.
And while we've covered a lot of ground, I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg, There's always more to uncover, more perspectives to consider, more to learn about this complex and fascinating chapter in human history.
So where do we go from here? What can our listeners take away from this deep dive?
I'd say see this as a starting point, an invitation to delve deeper, to explore those untold stories that are all around us. Look for the connections between the past and the present. Ask yourself, how do the legacies of indentured labor continue to shape our world today? How can we learn from the resilience and the adaptability of these communities? And most importantly, how can we use this knowledge to build a more inclusive, just, and equitable future for everyone?
Those are powerful questions to carry with us as we continue to explore the world with open minds and a thirst for understanding. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the often overlooked but never forgotten history of Indian indentured labor. It's a story that deserves to be told, remembered, and learned from. Until next time, keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and keep the spirit of deep dive alive.